Okay.
Okay, so we'll reconvene, call the meeting back to order. And um, should I start by reading the script again?
Yes, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay. Due to the current federal and state emergency declarations of Minnesota directive to residents to stay at home and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting of the LeRoy-Ostrander School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota statutes 13D.021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Due to the health pandemic, the school board determined that it is not feasible for at least one board member, superintendent, and school district's legal counsel to be physically present at the regular meeting location, and that it is not feasible for the public to attend at the regular meeting location due to the health pandemic. School board members are reminded to mute microphone or phone when they are not speaking. When you wish to speak, raise your hand and you'll be recognized by the board chair. Chair will determine the order in which board members wishing to speak, recognize, they'll unmute and speak. All votes will be conducted by roll call. Each board member should wait until their name is called before voting. The meeting is being recorded. Access to the recording will be made available at the school district's website as soon as reasonably possible. Is Jen with us?
I'm chatting with her right now. She can't hear us. And so I told her to leave and come back in. We'll see what happens here. Can you hear us now, Jen? There we go. Can you hear us? She can see, we can see you. There, your audio is now connecting. Very good. Very good. Okay, so they've done all their pleasantries. So Jennifer, we can get started with things.
Can you hear us, Jen? Good afternoon. And yeah, I think you could turn your...
Yes, let me just see here. I'm going to unmute her. Hang on. There we go. No, talk again now, Jen.
Yep, I'm here. I can hear you fine.
Good. Good.
Okay, well, thank you for meeting with us today.
Yes.
And we are interviewing 3 candidates today, and you'll all be notified as soon as we finish deliberations today. And I'll be asking the questions, and we'll all be taking notes to assist us in deliberations after the interviews. We're all listening carefully, and while we write and do not intend to be disrespectful. We've allocated an hour, and the last question will be if you have any questions for us. So you can use whatever time remains for that purpose.
Thank you.
Gary, have you provided Jen with a list of questions?
He has.
Yep, she's got it.
Okay. And Gary will notify us when there are 30 minutes remaining in our allotted time. So please let us know if you have any technical problems and we'll work through it. So now I'm going to ask each board member to introduce themselves. And I'll start. I'm Steve Kazel. I'm the board chair, LeRoy-Ostrander. This is my 4th year. And again, I thank you for coming to us today.
Yes.
And, go ahead.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
You bet. So I'll go to Cassidy first then.
Good evening, Jen. My name is Cassidy Milks. I'm just a director, and it's my 2nd year on the board.
Good, very good. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And then we'll go to Angie Olson.
Hi, Jen. Welcome. I'm Angie Olson. This is my 4th year on the board.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you.
And Teresa Frazier.
Hi, Jen. I'm Teresa Frazier. I am the board treasurer. This is my 2nd year. Thank you for your interest in the position.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
Justin Kennedy.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Kennedy, and I am also in my 4th year.
Great. Great. Nice to meet you, Justin.
Thank you.
And Tim Lewison.
Good afternoon, Jen. I'm Tim Lewison. I'm the vice chair, and this is my 7th year.
All right. Hi, Tim. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
And Patrick Arndorfer.
Hi, Jen. I'm Patrick Arndorfer. I am the board clerk, and this is my 4th year.
Great. Nice to meet you, Patrick.
Thank you.
So I guess then we'll move on to our first question. And so you got a copy of the questions. So I'll start with why are you interested in a part-time position at LeRoy-Ostrander?
Yeah, that is a great opening question. Thank you, Steve. For me, personally speaking, it's a great fit because I have recently been named a field specialist and regional advisor for those aspiring teachers going into the professional administrative ranks. And so I feel that this would fit nicely into my kind of grand scheme and grand plan of what I would like to do in my career. Serve as a superintendent in a district similar size to what I grew up in. I'm from Lanesboro. And I've been to the LeRoy-Ostrander gym many times playing ball. But a school district this size, but it fits so nicely with my passion for, I guess, leadership and supporting leaders in the educational field.
Thank you. The next question, what are among the most important characteristics of an effective superintendent, and how do they relate to you and your past experience?
Great question. Absolutely. I would say there's probably 5, maybe more characteristics that I have really come to believe make an effective superintendent. And I think they are communication, consistency, being policy driven, being a servant leader, and having high expectations. And those expectations need to be high not only for the staff that I serve, but also for myself as a professional in the ranks. You can see by my resume and also in all my references that I have a proven track record where those characteristics really have maybe bubbled up to the top in who I am and what I stand for. And I think that, so within those past experiences, you would see that. That not only in those characteristics with me, but also in terms of the, I guess, the actions I've taken filtered through those characteristics. My proven track record.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question, describe your ability to build trust and collaboration within the school district. How would you build and maintain trust within the LeRoy-Ostrander school system and community?
I love this question. I would say first and foremost, a person in any of our positions, whether you are a school board member, a teacher, superintendent, principal, whatever it may be, that establishment of trust is key, but it's also maintaining trust is key. So I think building off of that would be the constant communication, sometimes being really vulnerable also about items that we have to talk about, being willing to put yourself out there and not live in an ivory tower, making sure you're visible in the community and having quality conversations. I think also part of the role as a superintendent is I need to do my research. I'm not going to be an expert in everything. And I think that also builds trust too, that, yeah, I'm going to know some things, but I surely am not going to know everything, and I will always come forward with the best research I possibly can to not only build your trust, but also so you all can make quality decisions for the entire district. I think too, I just briefly touched on this, but I think just the visibility piece. You know, when people see you in your community, not just at work for your, 10 to 12 hours a day, but when you're buying gas there, when you're buying groceries, when you're at sporting events, when you're at the play, whatever it is, they trust you, they see you. So that visibility is really key as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Describe your philosophy of effective delegation.
Absolutely. Delegation is a very, very careful action that you oftentimes have to take, especially when you're an adult in a career such as this. But to have effective delegation, I think you first have to know the staff member that you are delegating to, first and foremost. Make sure you have built some sort of professional relationship with that person before you delegate any sort of task to them. I would also say when you're looking at the task, make sure that person's strengths are reflective of that task. I surely would never want to delegate a job to somebody who I know is going to fail, knowing what their weaknesses may be. So again, that knowledge is critical, knowing that they can be successful. And even with delegation, and I surely don't want to sound micromanaging by any means when I say this, even when you delegate, there still has to be a level of support after you delegate. There's the checking in, there's the questioning, there's the, hey, let's meet and talk about the project you're working on, things like that. You always want to continue to have support for wherever or whoever you delegate to.
Thank you. Next question, how would you suggest establishing a reasonable balance between budgeting for needed school district improvements and maintaining the fiscal integrity of the school district?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. I tell you what, one of the of course, biggest jobs that the superintendent has, but also the school board members have, is looking at your school district budget. We want to make sure we are respectful constituents of our dollar and we're using it wisely. And so I think it's really critical that, for me personally, I need to review the large big picture budget weekly. That's been my past practice and common practice that I use. But then there's details that are involved in looking at that too. I think there needs to be a quality relationship with the business manager, maybe your finance clerk, definitely your auditors, and have good relationships with them where if questions would come up, we're going to have those questions. We're going to have meetings. We're going to talk. I think there needs to be collaborative discussions. So that means having discussions with the business manager and other administrative staff, such as your principal. There's going to be monthly board meetings where we are going to talk publicly about the budget and making sure that's very transparent. In every district I've been in, and I haven't looked deep enough into your district yet, but I have established a school board committee to look at budgets where we meet 4 times a year. And of course, that's outside of the normal, the auditing time, truth and taxation time, things like that, but where we can sit down and really talk about, hey, these are some of the forecasts that I'm seeing, whether it's enrollment, whether it's aid, whether it's our tax base, whatever it may be, but being able to talk about that. I think it's really hard this day and age, though, to find that balance, as you asked in that question. It's very healthy to find that balance, no doubt about it. But to find it, you have to talk about it. You have to talk. What are our goals? What are the expectations of our community? What are our forecasts like? We also have to look historically. Where have we spent money? And where do we need to tweak the budget so we're not spending as much there as we have before? No doubt it's a multifaceted issue superintendents and school boards face, especially in this day and age. But finding that balance is key, no doubt about it, but it really comes down to communication and knowledge of how to run a budget.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then we move on to describe ways you maintain staff and system accountability to the school board and community. How would you set up an accountability system for personnel?
Ooh, very good. First and foremost, I think in terms of keeping your school and your personnel accountable, I think it has to start with the very basics of what's everybody's job description, what is the mission, vision, and reason why you are in our district. So first start with that. Let's start with, hey, let's look at human resources and what is everybody doing, and do they know what they're doing when they're here in our district? So establishing those job descriptions and talking about them yearly. Currently, when I supervise cabinet level and administrative staff in the Lewiston district that I serve, and every year we re-look at their job descriptions and tweak it if we need to, bring it forward to the school board and have those discussions. So I think it starts with that. I think as I keep, you're going to hear a consistent thread with me, but communication is key too. To hold people accountable, you can't just throw them to the wolves. You have to have sometimes very hard face-to-face conversations. I love phone calls, I love emails, I love doing the Zoom, but a face-to-face conversation, albeit sometimes hard and sometimes really good too, is really important to keep people accountable. You know, you're surely not micromanaging when you're asking people to do their jobs or asking them to change their jobs. It's just having conversations. That's being an adult in a professional role, and those are things sometimes that we have to do. So I think, you know, communicating that out is really key. And of course, with any kind of accountability, I have to be accountable. As the leader of a district, I need to be held accountable, not only by my own self and that I want to be held accountable, but I'm expecting the board to hold me accountable too. With questions that are asked, whether it's HR and personnel, maybe it's student data and the accountability we have with student achievement. Whatever it is, I also need to be held accountable by all of you too.
Thank you. Next, we move on to what is the role of the superintendent and the school board in developing community support for the schools?
Oh, I love this question. When I was at Mabel Canton, they recruited me in, I think because, and I'm not completely sure on this, but I'd like to think this, I guess. They were on the verge of going into SOD, statutory operating debt. So one of the things I had to come into was figuring out how can we get our community to support us. And so that, again, it comes down to, of course, communication, being a little bit vulnerable about how we have some needs here, and I'm going to be coming forward in the next year or so asking for an operating referendum. And so I think, too, that establishment of trust also is going to be huge with any kind of community support. So that comes down to being visible, again, being trustworthy, answering questions if you can, and if you can't, make sure you can do the research or find somebody who will research for you. Making sure, like I said, visible. I got to get out there in the community. I need to be present for board members. My phone is on 24/7. I have 3 teenage boys, and so you can imagine my phone never goes off. I'm always worried about them. But I also worry about the districts I serve, and I want to make sure I'm accessible in that respect too, that if a community member comes forward to a board member, they feel comfortable calling me and asking for guidance. And so that has to happen too, that the community knows they talk to all of us, and we eventually can have some sort of answer or guidance for them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we move on. What have you done to upgrade the educational programs in schools under your supervision? How have you evaluated the results?
Yep, absolutely. I would say one of the most important jobs that we all have is making sure our students are achieving, that they will leave, for example, the LeRoy-Ostrander School District and become positive contributing members of our society, whether they come back to LeRoy-Ostrander, Rochester, Minneapolis, New York, wherever it is, but they're coming back and they have a great baseline that we've given. Some of the things, so having that filter, some of the things I have done includes creation of a curriculum cycle that some of the districts I've served have never utilized. So really showing the MDE support with that, developing professional learning communities, whether it's weekly or whether it's done monthly, whatever it may be. So I've done a lot of that. We do a lot of data diving in the districts that I serve in terms of student success rates. And so I think that's really important too, to do that. So a lot of this is curriculum related, but it's all critically important where you're diving into what teachers need, the supports they need, but then how they can take that information and then serve the students that are in front of them. But that's part of the role as an administrator, that we have to be able to do those things and give it to the kids. We need to see results. We need to see results, and they need to be going upwards rather than downwards. So those are just some of the key things that I've done. The PLC model, the curriculum cycle, which is typically 7 years. It has costs in it as well as practices in it. And then also, I guess I should mention this, that in each of the districts that I've served, I've also implemented department meetings where the math department meets, science department meets, whatever it is, and we look at the standards and the upcoming standards that they're going to have to be teaching. In a district the size of LeRoy-Ostrander, sometimes that's maybe 1 or 2 teachers, but we can do interdisciplinary discussions, not a problem with that. That's important stuff. Again, it's all about communication and talking about these things and really making sure our mission is to serve those kids. It has to be.
Thank you. We are looking for a leader who has a record of involvement and visibility in both the school district and community. Provide us with examples of how you will be involved, visible, approachable, and accessible in our district and the community.
Excellent. I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here, folks, and I apologize for that. But, you know, you're going to be hiring a superintendent, and we need to, similar to all of you, need to be the poster child of your district. We need to wear the cardinal red. We need to be accessible and visible at sporting events. We need to take tickets at the basketball game. We need to be able to make sure the microphone works when you have your play going on. But we need to be part of these events, not only because we need to be visible and make sure we have a great relationship with our community, but it also extends a pulse of what is going on in the community. I need to know what's going on. And so those are some of the things I would do. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's really critical that our community is involved in, you know, our school board meetings. So having this platform available for our community so they know what's going on with us, making sure that our websites are up to date, that monthly, if not more than that, communication goes out in a newsletter to let them all the great things happening, and even some of the questionable things that are happening. It's okay to be vulnerable like that. I also think too that, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I need to be also a member of the community, and that means I need to buy my gas there. I need to have coffee in the morning with a group of people. I need to be present. I can't live in an ivory tower just because I have the title of superintendent behind my name. It's making sure I have the pulse of the community and being there and truthfully being there.
Thank you. Next question. What experience do you have with strategic planning for a school district, and how would you use such a plan in leading our school district?
Ooh, absolutely. I love strategic planning. As a matter of fact, I would say in all of these school districts that I have served as superintendent, we have either implemented a new strategic planning process, or there has been one where I have walked into and we've just had to move it and shake it as we go. I'm a big believer in a strategic process. Not to say that I fall in love with the end goal. Instead, I fall in love with the process. I think strategic planning is about the process. We get to hear from our constituency. We get to hear from each other. What things are important to us? What are our platforms as we come into the strategic plan? Also, it's very respectful of the dollars that we are taking from our community. Typically with strategic planning, monies are filtered throughout almost every single phase of that plan. Maybe we have a strategic plan for long-term facility maintenance and capital dollars. In year 5, we're going to redo our parking lots. In year 4, we're going to do our HVAC system. In year 3, maybe we're going to repaint the gym floor. Whatever it may be, but our community has a general sense of what our plans are. Again, we're being transparent, and we're also getting feedback the whole time of how we can improve. You know, there is such a wonderful growth mindset when you have a strategic plan. And not to say that it's set in stone. It surely is not. It ebbs and flows as money comes in, as administration changes, as school board members change. If a new industry would come into town, all of those things come into play with a strategic plan, but I think they're really important, and we need to embrace them very much so.
Thank you. What has been the most unpopular decision you have had to make, and how did you handle the reaction to this decision?
Well, this one actually, I'm sure I've had many, quite frankly, but I would say probably the most recent one, and the one that is probably many of you have heard about, was when the FBI showed up at the Lewiston Altura School District, and we had to immediately terminate our technology director for unfortunate reasons. And the hard part with all of that is that I couldn't give all the terrible details to our community. I battled our attorney a little bit, telling them that I needed to give some information. I got a little bit of backlash on that, not a lot, but enough to make me just, cringe, like, I so wish I could give you information, but I can't. Even during the day when it was all happening, and as a matter of fact, it was the last day of school last year when the FBI came, and just keeping it very quiet and secretive that day. So just having the 2 principals and myself involved with the FBI and that staff member was just difficult in itself. And of course, you're thinking of your students, your teachers. You're thinking about media releases. You're making sure your emails are impeccable to the staff. You're making sure all media is sent to you or even your cell phone just to make sure it was safe. So yeah, I mean, I got a lot of great feedback, but of course there were some people that maybe just don't understand the legalities of HR, where I could give as much information as I could. So a lot of that discussion had to happen too. Mm-hmm.
Next question. Describe your vision of the ideal relationship between the school board and the superintendent. What have you done in your past assignments to help achieve that relationship?
Ooh, very good. Well, I would say, kind of to use one of the words you used earlier, Steve, in one of your questions was balance. I think every relationship needs a quality balance. It needs to, have high expectations, but it also needs to have an opportunity for growth. I think our relationships needs to be vulnerable, where I can reach out to the board, tell that we have an issue at the district and I need feedback and I need support, or I need guidance on how you want me to react. I also think it needs to be a relationship where it's very trusting, and I'm trustworthy with the board, that you can count on me to not only serve you and guide you in the right direction, but also I will stand up for you and I will support you and I will take one on the chin for you. You should expect that from your superintendent. I think too, some of the things I've done in the past to create those relationships are reaching out to board members, checking in with them, making sure they know that I have an open door policy and I'm not just talking about it. They know that they can call me at 11 o'clock at night and I'll talk to them for an hour or two if need be. They know that if I say I'm going to be at the school on Wednesday for 12 hours, I will be there for 12 and a half hours. They know that. I've established that with them. I think too that also getting to know each other through committee meetings, monthly board meetings, maybe even a board retreat is really, really important stuff so we can establish a quality relationship. I'm a big believer in having a growth mindset. Like I said earlier, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to have all the answers, but I can tell you this and I can promise you this, that I will do my very best to research for you and support you, guide you, anything you need me to do.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How would you describe your understanding of school district finance? What of financial issues have you addressed in your career?
Absolutely. I've been a superintendent for well over 10, 12 years, I suppose now, and you check on your monies daily. I think I have an extremely solid understanding of school finance in Minnesota, school district finance. Again, I'm living it every day and I have for a long time. Some of the issues that I have addressed, which will help my candidacy in terms of this question, would be I've come into a school district where, as I mentioned earlier, was on the verge of statutory operating debt. I've been in larger school districts such as the Lewiston Altura School District, where we serve almost 900 students. I've worked in a school district up on the range, Cromwell Rights, where we have very different funding mechanisms than down here in southeastern Minnesota. I have been on the Minnesota Department of Education Finance Committee. So I get to dig deeper, I'm sorry, that was a while ago, but I got to dig deeper and really have a solid base in terms of finances in Minnesota. I have passed an operating referendum. I was part of the passing of the bus garage build at Lisle School District, and I helped them with that to get on its feet, so that was pretty fun. I have been through, I don't know how many, HVAC systems in school districts, probably 3 or 4. And that takes an awful lot of knowledge of school district finance and all of that. So the bonding and things like that. Yearly, I do all the truth in taxation presentations. I partner with every auditor to make sure when they do their presentation, I'm their backup to present also. Monthly, I present all finances to all the school board members. And again, like I said earlier, we do have committees that I establish with our board to make sure everybody's on the same page that way. And I'm also, not only am I presenting, but I'm hopefully training everybody too on what we're doing. And then lastly, as a professor, I have taught Minnesota school finance for principals and superintendents probably, I don't know, 7 to 10 times in my career for St. Mary's University. And I've been very fortunate to do that. But that's been a really helpful tool in terms of my growth too.
Sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. How would you handle parent complaints about teacher performance?
Oh, very good. Absolutely. You know, it's going to happen. The reality is it's going to happen. And I think we have to embrace that. And one of the biggest things we need to do, of course, is be active listeners to that complaint. First and foremost, and you're going to hear this from all the candidates because this is what we're trained to do. But initially, yes, absolutely, I'm going to listen to that parent. But my first question will be back to that parent. Did you talk to the teacher? And did you tell them what your complaint was? Did you maybe establish a relationship, or, you know, do you need a meeting scheduled? If that has already happened, again, I would follow the process of, hey, you know what? Then I would definitely recommend you go to the principal and try to figure out some kind of an agreement to get the teacher in there to meet as well. Again, I'm a big believer in face-to-face meetings that if there are issues, good or bad, we should be talking about them. These are adults and we need to treat them as such. So it's going to happen, but I would definitely force it back where it starts. And then if it does get to my way, again, I'm a really big believer in active listening and asking questions of the parent and somehow finding a solution. Of course, I can't have all the solutions, but I will definitely try and give as many resources as I can. Steve, I hate to put you on the spot as the chair, but if they don't like my answer, I'm guessing they're coming to you next. And I surely would embrace that too. There is protocols and practices that we follow, but I surely would do my very best to stop it at my door first if I can.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd hit them right back to you.
Oh, okay. That's common too.
So the next question, tell us about a time when you had to tell a staff member that their performance was not meeting expectations.
Sure. Well, I mentioned the FBI one. That was actually very easy, quite frankly. But the year prior to that, we did have a teacher that needed to be released. She was not meeting the expectations of the school district, nor through her evaluations and our expectations, quite frankly. But before I go to how that happened, or my engagement in releasing her, I really want to stress that anytime there is a performance issue, we as leadership need to look at ourselves. What did we do to make sure we supported that person so they didn't go down the road of possible termination or release, write up, whatever it is? Did we allow for mentor-mentee meetings, staff development opportunities, whether they were internal or external? Did we hold enough meetings with them so they truly understood our expectations? All of those things need to be exhausted first. A lot of pressure is placed on the person having to release that personnel. You're changing their lives. So you want to make sure you're exhausting all those things first. So in terms of that teacher that I had to release, I had the two principals sit in with me. I had a new principal who had never done it before. I did have the supervising principal sit in with me as well. And this is just common practice at Lewiston. But we talked about their past performance records, so their evaluation tools. We talked about all the opportunities that they had to grow. And then of course, you have to be honest with them and you have to face them and say, you know, wow, I'm really sorry, but just at this time, you're maybe not a good fit for Lewiston. We didn't see the growth we wanted to see. And you have those hard conversations. Of course, I can't tell you exactly what I'd say because I'm not sure of the conversation. But also, too, I really want to stress that timing is everything. Timing is everything. You know, releasing somebody the end of June probably isn't as ethical as we think it is. You know, that next contract starts July 1. So the earlier we know about our staff, the better it is. And having those conversations. And quite frankly, your human resource department is one of the most important departments you have at your school district. So we need to have a really solid pulse of what's going on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. During your first year as our superintendent, how might you go about determining the strengths and weaknesses of our school district?
Oh, I love this question. It's a hard question. Boy, I tell you what, well, part of it is, again, you know, me being present. I need to be in the building when I said I'm going to be in the building and more. I need to be at events. I need to have committee meetings. I need to be an active listener. I need to ask a lot of questions. I need to dig deeper and do my research in terms of your budget. If you have a current strategic plan, your past board minutes, maybe any financial history that whether it's a bond issue or a building issue that I need to dig deeper in. So I think that first year is definitely a growth year for me, where I'm going to be asking an awful lot of questions to determine, hey, wow, this is a huge strength of yours. Do you agree with me? Maybe it's, hey, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say things are weaknesses, but I'd probably say, hey, is this a challenge we're facing? And maybe we're not. But, you know, you all have a better pulse right now than I would. So you would be my go-to people, probably more than anybody else, to let me know, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what we're hearing. Can you do some digging for us to kind of figure out those strengths and weaknesses too? That would help me anyway.
Thank you. And the last question, what questions do you have for us?
All right. All right. Let's see. I just have a couple. Oh, everybody's coming back. Very good. Very good. It's hard to look at dark screens, you guys. That's for sure. My first question, and if you all want to jump in, that would be great. But in your opinions, what is the biggest point of pride at LeRoy-Ostrander? So what are your successes, do you believe?
Anybody can raise their hand.
That's right. Yeah.
Go ahead, Angie.
I'm going to say that I think all of our teachers, we have the small class sizes, and I think they're all engaged and really passionate about helping the kids and being engaged with the students and present in their lives more than just them as a student in the classroom.
Great answer. I love that.
Yep.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I'd have to agree with the.
Go ahead,
Justin.
Teresa.
Oh, who's going first?
You are.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Oh, okay. I have to agree with Angie. Our district's been through a lot the last couple years. Our staff has always done the best for the kids. They've always, you know, showed up for the kids. I think that's one of the biggest things we have going right now is our staff in the building.
Oh, I love that. Very good. Very good. Yeah, I've been kind of researching your website, and I see some teachers post things, and very cool.
I guess one thing that comes to mind for me that sets this district apart from others is the ag program that they have here, and then the instructor that runs it. So.
Oh, very good. Absolutely. Both in the Mabel Canton district and of course the Lewis and Altura school district I serve have quality agriculture programs. They're huge actually. Mabel's sunk a little bit during the SOD time, but they're definitely growing. So I would agree, Justin, that's a big deal.
One thing I would like to add is that we have a rare asset that most schools don't have, and that's in our swimming pool. And the community just showed us a tremendous showing of support by approving a special referendum where we were given $140,000 a year in operating money to keep the pool going. So, so that's an asset that is very appreciative of the community and the school district.
I would agree. Wow, that's a big deal. Very good. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that as well, and as well as Angie's and Teresa's comments. You know, we really have a fantastic staff involved. They're really involved in every student, and they make sure that the success rate on each student is their main priority. And the ag program, there's a ton of programs out there I think are you know, it's an amazing district to be at, and I'm very proud of that.
Oh, very good. Cassie, thank you. Very good. Do we have a lot of sports and art fans here too? I know you guys have been successful also in the past year. It's hard for me to admit that being a Lanesboro borough, but I will this one time, I suppose. But yeah, you guys have found some pretty significant success also. Good, good. Anybody else want to add anything? No? All right, my last question, because I know you have to get moving on to your next interview too. Do you see any future changes needing to be implemented or challenges you will be facing as a district?
Go ahead, Teresa.
I think one thing that all small schools, of course, face for a challenge would be enrollment numbers. Make sure that we at least maintain our numbers, if not bring them up.
Excellent point. Excellent. You're right.
Go ahead, Tim.
I guess the facilities thing, we need to really take a good look at that with the budget and see what we can keep moving forward with. Yeah, that's going to be a concern right away.
You bet. Yeah, similar to your own home budget. You know, boy, when do we replace our roof, and do we need to do some re-siding? You know, it's just like a home. It's a big issue. Big issue. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm going to add on Tim's where, you know, we do have some HVAC needs in our school. You know, we have control issues where rooms get warm, get cold, and air circulation and possibility of adding AC to the school would be great if we can figure out how to do that. And them temporary classrooms too. We got some that are 20 to 30 years old. It's wood structure that needs to be looked at. So
very good. Very good. Excellent. Anybody else? Very good. Well, that's all the questions I have for tonight.
good. Thank you for coming and being with us, and we will get a hold of you after deliberations and let you know what we've decided or what we're deciding. So,
well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate this opportunity, and if you have further questions too, I am of course home all night. You can surely call me if you have questions too. But Gary, thank you for sending me the link. I really appreciate it too.
No problem.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
yep. So, Gary, you got anything to add, or should we just make a motion to recess?
Just need the motion to recess till we're way ahead of schedule. So I think the next one's at 6:30. So we got probably a good 20 minutes to 25 minutes before you have to be back on. So I'd recess till 6:25.
Okay. I motion to recess.
I'll second.
Till 6. Okay.
Oops, sorry, Steve.
That's okay. Teresa?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Justin?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Cassidy?
Yes.
And I vote yes also, so motion carry, and we'll recess till 6:25.